The lawyer's whisper cut through the somber silence of my grandmother's funeral. "Miss John," he urged, his voice low and urgent, "please come with me immediately." I started to ask why, but his grip tightened on my arm, a silent command. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Julian, my brother, watching us from the gravel path, his phone lowered, eyes narrowed. "There is something important I need to show you," Harrison muttered, his gaze sweeping the crowd. "Do not tell your parents. Do not tell your brother. Just get in your car and drive to my office." He released my arm and vanished into the sea of black suits. A sudden tightness seized my chest, and the dry wind felt suffocating. I kept my head down, ignoring my mother's wave from her hired car, and walked straight to my old truck. The cemetery faded in my rearview mirror as the sun dipped below the jagged mesa. The 2-0-minute drive to Harrison's firm on the quiet edge of Albuquerque felt like an eternity. The building sat surrounded by empty asphalt and dying scrub brush. Overhead streetlights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows against the brick facade. Every window was dark except for a dim amber glow in the lobby. I parked, my boots crunching on the gravel, and that's when I saw him. A tall silhouette stood in the recessed doorway, smoking a cigarette. The brief orange flare illuminated a rugged face I'd never seen before. He didn't move to open the door, just stood in the dark, exhaling a slow breath of smoke, waiting for me. He didn't flinch as I approached. He took one final drag, the ember highlighting a scar near his jawline, then dropped the butt and crushed it under his boot. He pulled open the heavy glass door, the hinges groaning in the quiet night. "You are Mabel," he said, his voice low, rough like crushed gravel. I stopped at the threshold, my grip tightening on my purse strap, calculating the distance back to my truck. I didn't confirm my name. Then Harrison stepped into the lobby from the dark hallway, looking older, his shoulders sagging. "It is safe, Mabel," he said. "Please come inside. We do not have much time." I stepped through the door, and Harrison immediately turned the deadbolt. The metallic click echoed in the empty reception area. He led us down a narrow corridor lined with framed diplomas and overflowing filing cabinets into a windowless conference room. The air smelled of stale coffee and floor wax. The stranger took a seat across from me, resting his elbows on the polished mahogany table. "My name is Elias Thorne," he stated. "I am a private investigator. Your grandmother hired me 3 months ago." My pulse hammered against my ribs. Sylvia had never mentioned a private investigator. She lived a quiet, structured life, tending her gardens and reading historical biographies. "Why would my grandmother need a private investigator?" I asked, my voice hollow. Elias reached inside his worn leather jacket, pulling out a thick manila folder. He placed it on the table, not opening it right away, looking at me with a steady, unblinking gaze. "Because she knew she was running out of time," he said. He flipped the folder open. Inside was a stack of medical documents with the letterhead of an independent laboratory in Phoenix. Elias slid the top page toward me. "The coroner listed the cause of death as a sudden myocardial infarction," he continued. "A heart attack. A tragic but common end for an 82-year-old woman. But your grandmother suspected her health issues were not natural. She sent me blood and hair samples weeks before she passed. I had them tested off the books." I stared at the black text on the crisp white paper. The scientific jargon blurred until my eyes locked onto a single highlighted line. "Foreign synthetic compound detected, consistent with prolonged toxic exposure." The breath left my lungs. The leather chair felt like it was swallowing me. My hands turned numb. "She was poisoned," I whispered, the word metallic on my tongue. "Slowly," Elias corrected. "It was a gradual introduction of a synthetic neurotoxin. It mimics the symptoms of natural cardiac decline, shortness of breath, tremors, fatigue. Someone was slipping it into her food or her daily supplements, someone who had regular access to her kitchen." The faces of my family flashed through my mind. Richard carving the Sunday roast, Julian pouring her evening tea, Evelyn arranging her vitamin pill boxes with a sweet maternal smile. The image of my mother brought a sudden chill to my skin. My mind drifted backward, pulled by a memory from 2 decades ago. I was 10, standing inside Sylvia's sprawling glass greenhouse. The air was thick and humid, smelling of damp earth and crushed leaves. Sylvia, in gardening gloves stained with dark soil, held a rare desert cactus in one hand and a sharp grafting knife in the other. A dark, soft spot blemished the side of the green stem. "You have to cut away the rot, Maribel," she told me, her voice firm but gentle. She pressed the blade into the plant, slicing deep into the healthy tissue to remove the infection. I winced, asking if it hurt the plant to lose so much of itself. Sylvia set the knife down. "Even if the rot reaches the main stem, you must remove it. If you hesitate, the infection spreads. Otherwise, the whole plant dies. You save what you can, and you discard the rest without regret." Sitting in the cold conference room, the meaning of her words settled heavily over me. My family was the rot. Sylvia had known it. She had watched the infection spread through her son, then to his wife, and finally to her grandson. "If she knew," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Why did she not go to the police?" "Because proving it would require a lengthy investigation," Harrison intervened, folding his hands on the table. "Your father has expensive lawyers. They would drag it out in court, claim the lab results were flawed, or blame a careless caregiver." Sylvia wanted to ensure they faced justice, but she also wanted to protect her legacy. She wanted to protect you. Harrison stood and walked to a small safe in the corner. "Sylvia orchestrated a legal trap," he explained over his shoulder. "She restructured her entire estate. But she did not finish the final step before the poison took her. To activate the mechanism, we need two things: a physical brass key and a coded journal where she documented every symptom, every meal, and every interaction with your family." "Where are they?" I asked. "Hidden on her estate," Elias answered. "She told me she buried them where only you would understand to look." "She said you speak the same language she did." Elias leaned closer, his rugged face grim. "You need to understand what you are up against, Mabel. Your father is loud and your brother is desperate. But Evelyn is the architect. She is the one pulling the strings. She plays the role of the grieving peacemaker, but she is a psychological manipulator. She orchestrates the chaos and watches from the sidelines while others take the fall." I nodded slowly. The pieces of my childhood snapped into a horrifying alignment. Evelyn never raised her voice. She never threw a plate. She didn't have to. Her power lay in her ability to subtly twist perceptions, to sow discord with a well-placed sigh or a knowing glance. The next morning, I arrived at Sylvia's estate, a sprawling ranch house nestled in the high desert, with Elias and Harrison. My parents and Julian were already there, their faces a mask of strained grief and thinly veiled impatience. The air was thick with unspoken tension. "We're here to discuss the will," Harrison announced, his voice cutting through the silence. "But first, Mabel has a message from Sylvia." I held up the brass key and the coded journal. Richard's face paled. Julian's jaw tightened. Evelyn, ever the actress, managed a bewildered smile. "What is this, dear?" she purred. "Some kind of game?" "No, Mother," I said, my voice steady. "It's the truth." Over the next few hours, I led them on a scavenger hunt, guided by Sylvia's cryptic clues in the journal. Each clue was a memory, a shared moment. Only Sylvia and I understood. The first clue led us to the old greenhouse, where I unearthed a small weathered wooden box beneath a rare desert rose. Inside was a faded photograph of Sylvia and me, gardening. The next clue, a pressed four-leaf clover, was hidden in her favorite copy of The Secret Garden, leading us to a loose brick in the fireplace. There, I found a silver locket containing a tiny, intricately folded note. Each discovery chipped away at my family's composure, their polite smiles cracking under the weight of Sylvia's clever, deliberate revelations. Finally, the last clue, a dried agave leaf, led me to the ancient saguaro cactus in the backyard, a landmark Sylvia and I had often admired. Beneath its sprawling roots, I found a small, waterproof container. Inside was a single, elegantly written letter from Sylvia, addressed to me. I read it aloud, my voice trembling slightly. It detailed her suspicions, her fear of being poisoned, and her unwavering trust in me to uncover the truth. It also revealed the final, devastating blow, a codicil to her will, stating that her entire estate, including the ranch and all its assets, would pass directly to me, bypassing Richard, Evelyn, and Julian entirely, but only if I could prove their culpability in her death. The room erupted. Richard bellowed, Julian lunged, and Evelyn, for the first time, lost her composure, her face contorting in a silent scream. Harrison stepped forward, his presence a calming force. "The will is clear," he stated firmly. "Mabel has presented evidence of a meticulously planned attempt to subvert Sylvia's wishes and, potentially, her life. The police have been notified, and they are on their way." Julian, seething, muttered, "This isn't over." He stormed into the kitchen, followed by Richard, who was still shouting threats. Evelyn, pale and shaken, remained in the living room, her facade finally shattered. I knew this was far from over. Sylvia's plan was brilliant, but it had only just begun. The true battle for justice, and for my own safety, lay ahead. The next day, the police investigation began in earnest. The lab results from Elias's samples were corroborated, confirming the presence of the neurotoxin. My family, of course, denied everything. Richard hired a team of high-powered lawyers, just as Harrison had predicted. Julian disappeared for a few days, only to resurface with a flimsy alibi. Evelyn maintained her innocent victim act, but the cracks in her composure were becoming more apparent. The legal battle dragged on for months. It was a grueling, emotionally draining process. My parents and Julian painted me as a greedy, ungrateful child, manipulating my ailing grandmother. But Sylvia had anticipated their every move. The coded journal, meticulously detailing every meal, every visitor, every symptom, became an irrefutable timeline of their insidious plot. Elias, with his sharp investigative skills, uncovered financial irregularities and hidden debts that exposed Richard's desperate need for Sylvia's inheritance. He also found evidence of Julian's shady dealings and Evelyn's history of manipulating vulnerable individuals for financial gain. The turning point came during a deposition. Julian, under intense questioning, cracked. He admitted to administering the neurotoxin, but claimed Evelyn had orchestrated the entire scheme, even providing him with the poison. Evelyn, in turn, tried to shift the blame to Richard, claiming he was the mastermind. The family's carefully constructed web of lies unraveled, each blaming the other, exposing their true, venomous nature. The trial was a spectacle. The media latched onto the story of the poisoned grandmother and the battling family. Richard, Evelyn, and Julian were convicted on multiple charges, including conspiracy to commit murder and elder abuse. They received lengthy prison sentences, their lives of privilege replaced by the harsh reality of incarceration. The aftermath was a strange mix of relief and profound sadness. I had won, but at a tremendous cost. My family, as I knew it, was gone. The rot had been cut away, but the wound remained. I inherited Sylvia's estate, a vast fortune I never truly wanted, but which I now felt a deep responsibility to manage according to her values. I established a foundation in her name, dedicated to supporting elder care and fighting financial abuse. I also funded research into neurotoxins, hoping to prevent others from suffering Sylvia's fate. I often visited the greenhouse, sitting among the vibrant plants, sipping tea, just as Sylvia and I used to do. I watched a new agave pup push through the soil, a symbol of resilience and new beginnings. Sylvia's guidance, her brutal honesty, and unwavering family responsibility had saved me. She had taught me that true strength is found in patience, observation, and the refusal to compromise one's honesty for a convenient shortcut. My parents and Julian had treated honesty as a burden, building a house of cards on forged signatures, toxic loans, and lethal deception. They forgot that children are the ultimate mirrors. Julian became a predator because he was raised by one. He ended up begging for commissary money in a federal penitentiary because his parents never taught him the value of honest labor or the basic principles of human empathy. We must ask ourselves what we are modeling for the young eyes watching us every single day. Are we teaching them to be the parasitic vine that drains the host? Or are we teaching them to be the deep root that sustains life? Breaking a toxic generational cycle is the hardest work a person can do. It requires you to mourn the family you deserved while fighting the family you were given. I had to become the sole architect of my own rescue, but I was only able to do it because Sylvia left me the blueprint. If this story resonates with you, if you have ever had to navigate the painful reality of a toxic household or found your own quiet strength in the shadows of someone else's ego, you are not alone. There is a community here that understands the heavy cost of cutting away the rot to save yourself. Please subscribe and follow the Revenge Order channel for more stories about resilience, justice, and the quiet power of outsmarting the predators in your life. Share your own experiences in the comments below, because your personal story of survival might be the exact guide someone else needs to hear today. The agave plant spends its entire life gathering energy, storing water in its thick leaves, enduring the blistering heat and the freezing nights. It does not boast, it simply prepares. And when the time is right, it produces something magnificent, leaving behind a new generation before it fades back into the earth. When I sat in that greenhouse sipping my tea and watching the new agave pup push through the soil, I was looking at the physical manifestation of my grandmother's guidance. I was looking at the enduring result of brutal honesty and unwavering family responsibility. We are all planting seeds in the dark. We are all leaving a legacy behind, whether it is written in a legal trust or etched into the emotional memories of our children. The question is not whether our children will grow. The question is what they will become when the drought arrives and the easy water dries up. Will they wither under the pressure, turning on each other to survive? Or will they draw from a deep hidden well of character that we helped them build? Look closely at the people sitting around your dinner table tonight. Look at the quiet ones. Look at the loud ones. The future is already taking root right in front of you. What kind of harvest are you preparing for?